In case you don't know, we use Anchor to distribute our podcast. We love it because it's free, there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. There's no minimum listenership to start earning money, if that's a goal for your podcast. And everything you need to make a podcast is in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started creating your own podcast.
So, zero-based budgets.
This is your jam.
I have been excited to talk about these since the idea of what the finance began. I'm not even exaggerating here. These are my favorite budgets. Jam. So, quick 30-second zero-based budgets are budgets that you take your monthly income, whether that be your income or your combined income with a partner or whatever that may be to you. There are some people who have primary incomes and also secondary incomes, and some of those people don't use their secondary income. You take your income for the month that you are going to use for your budget, and you subtract all of the things that you have to spend money on for the month until you reach zero. That's it sounds kind of weird, I think, sometimes if you are not familiar with them. It was a concept that I looked at first when I started researching and thought was just never gonna work. I legitimately looked at them and went, that doesn't make sense. That won't work for anybody. And now it's the only thing I use. So
yeah, pretty much.
they're great. I love them. So for our family, we use our combined income because we combined our finances. We don't have separate finances in our household. So we take both of our jobs' incomes, and then we subtract all of our monthly expenses. And I mean everything. So your big stuff, for us, it's a mortgage, our insurance. Gas is a big category in our budget because my wife drives a lot for work. So we take all of the big things, subtract those, but also all of the little things. So both of our spending money for the month, our groceries, which is not actually a small thing. We also, in our budget, we've talked a little bit about in the past, making sure that you have a category. So if you eat out a lot like we do, we have a relatively large budgeted amount for restaurants. We also have fun money / date night in our budget because we like to go out and hang out with our friends, and for us that's our fun money, but we have money set aside for that. We also both have just recently switched over from having AT&T as our wireless provider to switching to Mint Mobile. As we've mentioned before, we will pretty much only talk about and give name recognition to services and providers that we like. I absolutely love Mint Mobile. I had researched the company for about a year before we switched over. We switched over one of our plans. We actually switched over my wife's plan first because we had to pay off our cell phones because we had payment plans for our phones. So there are some things to be taken into consideration if you're looking at switching, but we save a ton. And I should have done this math beforehand. Actually, I can do it really quick.
Now, I think you had said to me at one point that you spend as much in a year with Mint Mobile as you spent previously in 1 month.
Correct. So for a year for Mint Mobile, for us to get the 8 gigabyte plan of data, which was, neither of us had gone over that amount. Now, that did change once over the summer, but we were able to purchase extra data for her for that month. And for us, that was not a big deal because I do also have a miscellaneous category in our budget specifically for things that come up that I hadn't planned for, because you can't plan for everything. We spent $240 for the entire year for her, and that used to be what our cell phone plan was a month. We really enjoy it. Now what we'll do is I will still have that category in our budget for us to put aside a little bit of money each month for the next year's plan when that does come up. So we'll already have the money in a savings account, and we'll just be able to pull that from savings and then pay for the next year's cell phone plan. But it's significantly less. I mean, I'm not putting away, it's not $240 a month. It's $20 for both of us. So it's $40 a month that we stick in a sinking fund for our cell phone plan. We could probably do an entire episode on sinking funds, but they're pretty straightforward. They're not very long conversations. A sinking fund is simply setting aside money that you know is going to be used for a specific purpose. So like an emergency fund is just that. It is there only for emergencies. Sinking funds are really good for maintenance type things. So if you do own your home, having them set aside for any home projects that you're going to do. We have tons of them going on constantly, and this year has been the projects year at my house.
Well, I mean, everybody's home. You don't have to try to schedule a time for a person to come. I will add, a sinking fund doesn't have to be for something that is really big either, like a household project. Right, like I have one in our household budget for our water bill because my city bills water quarterly. So every 4 months when I get the water bill, pay the water bill, and then I start building it back up again. So then there's a little carryover, quarter to quarter, but not that much.
And that is a really good point. I was giving examples of bigger sinking funds, but we also have some smaller ones. I'd mentioned the cell phone budget for us is not a huge one. We use sinking funds on a smaller scale for our Sam's Club trips. I know that Sam's Clubs aren't everywhere, but they have other wholesale places like
Costco is really the other big one.
Yeah. I feel like there's one other one that's a more southern one, and I don't remember what it is.
I will say, at this point, we don't have a ton of sinking funds, really just for the water bill. But
I have 2 spreadsheets of sinking funds.
Well, yeah. I will also say, for the benefit of our listeners, that you have been doing this a lot longer than me. For our listeners who are maybe like me and have young kids running around their homes.
Oh, yeah.
You need a friend like Cheyenne who doesn't have any children, so that if you're like, I can't figure out what to do with my money, and then I can go to my friend who does not have years of sleep deprivation under her belt and has also been reading about this stuff to say, so what do you think about this thing? And then she can tell me. So just throwing that out there.
Yes, you definitely need a friend like that. And chances are you already have that friend and you probably just don't know that you do, because money is a weird topic for people. I used to have a lot of anxiety around money. I used to hate talking about it, and I just slowly got more and more comfortable with it. And now I talk about it like people talk about the weather. Difference is when I talk about the weather, other people don't seem to get really uncomfortable.
Well,
but
it's slow but steady.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody builds up a tolerance eventually.
Yep. Exactly. So you probably do have that friend, or you probably do have that person in your life already. If you don't, keep listening to us and hit us up with questions. If we don't know the answer, we will do our best to find the answer or to point you in the direction of somebody who knows more about it than we do. I am also, this is one of many disclaimers we'll throw out there. We are not professionals. We are just sharing what we know. So I have no problem saying when I don't know something and that you should consult a professional.
Yeah.
The whole point of this for us was to share resources.
Yes. And really, we are both doing this because we, through trial and error, have figured out kind of a lot about managing our money based on the very different lives that we are leading.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what makes us such an awesome team to do a podcast like this.
Yeah. And honestly, I feel like the piece that we can provide that is probably most helpful is sharing what we have tried and didn't work and why it didn't work, because it may work for someone else. For instance, we've talked about the envelope budget method. That works really well for many people. It just does not work for me. It's not a bad method. I'm not going to say don't do that. You have to do the zero-based budget because that's what I use and what works best for me. That's not in any of this. That's not what we're saying.
Yeah.
It's just, it is something that I've tried. It didn't work for me for many reasons. And so learning from other people's mistakes hopefully helps. If not, maybe we're a little entertaining. I don't know.
And I will also say, if that's a budget piece, when we talk about what we use in our families, I use kind of a weird zero-based budget / 50, 30, 20 combo.
Mm-hmm.
So if your budget should work for you.
Yep.
So it is 100% okay to be picking and choosing different pieces from different budget methods to make sure that your budget actually helps you manage your money.
Absolutely, because if your budget doesn't work for you, you're not going to use it. I was absolutely I have a budget. I'm just really bad with money. I was 100% that person. And the problem was that I was trying to use a budget that didn't work for me. I have tried pretty much every mainstream budget and multiple weird, random budget tools that like 10 people have heard of. I've tried a lot. So with that said, if you have one that you know of that we haven't spoke about, or that you want to know more about, or that you think would be hilarious to listen to me try for a month, I'm very willing. For the last, I would say, 8 years, I have been on the hunt. And this is an open invitation to anybody. If you can find something that combines all of these things, please, please, please tell me about it, because I have not found it. I want to find something where I'm only using one tool, because right now I use multiple. If you have followed our Twitter at all, and
you should.
You should absolutely follow our
Twitter. Good.
And at some point, I did have a thread out there of money management tools that I use, what they were, and a little blip of why I liked them. So I also, you just can't see me, but I'm picking up my phone because I do have a finance folder on my phone. I am that person. It's
well, you know,
right on my home screen. So I use EveryDollar as my zero-based budget tool. It is the easiest one that I found. They do have the option to, every month for free, you can use it. They do have some paid options. They also have a free trial where you can link your bank account, which is pretty cool. It is useful. For me, it's just, I'm not willing to spend I think it's like $110 a year for it. That's just not, for me, that's not worth it. I can track my money other ways, which I will get to. Mm-hmm. So I do love EveryDollar. It is a very simple budget method. With that said, I do not use their debt tracking. I don't like it. It used to be awesome when it was, what was it called? You would think that this name would be ingrained in my memory because I only complained about it for 2 years. I got rid of it. I'm serious. I emailed their customer service. I was that person. It'll come to me. So I do not use their debt tracking. I don't like it. I think it's a very broken tool, which is a bummer. So on that note, what I do use for our debt tracking is something called Undebt-It. It's fantastic. It's one dude that runs this thing, and he is phenomenal. He is pretty consistently adding features, and I would say at this point he adds in 1 to 2 really cool new features every year, which I absolutely love. And it's phenomenal. It gives you your debt payoff date based on whatever debt management you want to use. If that's a goal of yours, I think it's super, super, super cool. I cannot recommend it enough. Something else that we have recently started using in our household is called Honeydew. And what that does is it allows you to track your spending with your spouse or your partner, whoever that may be. You could use it with a roommate too. If you have more than one, if you're using it for the roommate situation, if you have more than one roommate that you need to kind of track those things with, there are different tools for that. I don't know much about them, but you can choose which transactions and accounts other people can see. So that's super cool if you're in that shared expense situation, like if you're in college and have like 4 to 6 roommates, which if you're in college and living in a rental, you probably do. So it can help you with
you poor soul. I'm sorry for you.
Yep. It's super cool because it allows you to put your budgeted amounts in. It tells you when you've reached a certain percentage category. So when you've kind of gotten close to your spending limit for a certain category, you set the threshold. It'll tell you when you've gotten there. But the other thing that it allows you to do is you can open up a transaction and you can chat with your partner and say like, hey, I see this Walmart charge. What was this for? Was this you? First of all, that's usually my go-to is if I don't know about it, chances are it was my spouse. But we did have a situation in which one of our debit cards was compromised. And I was very thankful to have this because I saw it.
Yeah.
And I just messaged and was like, hey, was this you? And she was like, nope, not me. And we were getting a new card. It allows you to discuss those things. It also allows you to split expenses, which is super cool for us. Like we shop at Walmart because we have very limited options up here. And it is what it is. So some of our purchases will be grocery and some of them will be household items, and it allows us to split those things, which is awesome. I also use, like I said, some spreadsheets that I got off of Etsy. I should probably have had the name of the Etsy seller. I'll put that somewhere at some point for us so that we can give credit where credit is due because they're really cool. They're really pretty and they're well done.
Yeah, and I will say, so we use EveryDollar, which I love, and I actually have it up while we're recording. So I did check. A whole year is $130 if you want the Ramsey Plus version. And then also Undebt-It. And while I appreciate the the feature where it tells you when you're going to be debt-free. We have a lot out in student loans, my spouse and I. While it's a nice feature, it is also super easy to ignore. It kind of blends in with the page.
That is very true. It is very easy to not have to look at all the time.
Right. So you can look at the progress that you've made and you can feel really super awesome about yourself without paying attention to the fact that if the government doesn't forgive your student loans, you're going to be in debt until you die.
Undead has some really cool features, and he offers limited features for free. I do pay for an annual membership, which is super cheap. I want to say it's like $24 a year or something like that. And he, in the past, has done some deals around holidays where you can get it for cheaper. Something that I think is really cool with Undead is that it has little payoff snapshots. So it does tell you your debt-free date, but it also, if you're motivated by seeing your wins every month, you can see how much you paid off in debt per month, which I really like. I like being able to see at the end of the month what we paid off, and he does have a history. I think that one's just in the Plus membership. But if you do use You Need a Budget, it does sync with that, which is super cool. It just happens to not be a thing that I can use because
that's just how it pans out.
just who I am as a person.
Sometimes.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's a super cool tool. We'll definitely link in the descriptions the tools that we mentioned that we recommend so that if you are interested, you can check them out. If you have any questions or comments or wins that you want mentioned, let us know.
Yeah. We are delighted to celebrate with you.
Yes. If you enjoy listening to us ramble.
Yes. And drop a few nuggets of helpful knowledge along the way, we hope.
Yes. Make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure you are following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And get a hold of us with any questions, comments,